So what's your dream? Seriously.
All right. Well, I had a dream. This is actually a dream I had a couple months ago. Because like lately, I've been having interesting dreams. But if I don't write them down as soon as I wake up, I forget about them.
Yeah.
Unless they're extremely memorable. And my favorite dream stories to share is, sometimes the funniest thing happens is when you're dreaming, when you're asleep, your subconscious puts together these quotes and these things that come up in your dream that your subconscious puts together are so fucking hilarious because, like, they make sense in the dream world, but then when you wake up and you remember it, it doesn't fucking make sense at all. But it sometimes it still fucking sounds hilarious, and it's amazing to think that you could come up with such insane shit while you're sleeping. But so this is a really funny one I had. It's pretty short. It's not as long as the last one I had, but this is from a couple months ago. I had this dream. Now, just to backtrack, if any of you aren't familiar with our background and shit, Danny and I used to live next door to each other down south in North Carolina, and we lived on this street called Cheviot Hill, and we had, of course, we had since moved away. I'm now living up in Connecticut, and you're living in California. And even when we had first, we had first moved out of our houses that were next door to each other, and I was staying in another part of Charlotte. You had went to Buffalo before you went to California. So it was around that time that I had this dream. So I was, of course, I'm dreaming that it's modern times. Like, I'm no longer living in my house, but in the dream, you were still living next door to me. And we had, like, a bunch of more like 20-year-old kids. It was like a fucking, it's basically like a fraternity house that you got, like, next door to your grandparents now, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, there's, like, a bunch of 20-year-old kids that moved into my house, and Dan's grandparents still live next door to that house. So anyways, in the dream, I had a dream that I had just left my house. I had just moved out, and I was really bummed out about it. And I was, I went home to my new apartment that was in the university area of Charlotte, and I got on Facebook. And I had actually befriended the guys that live in my old house on Facebook. And I was talking to them and everything, and I was like, oh, man, I miss living in that house in that neighborhood. And I was really upset. And I found on Facebook they had all these pictures that they had repainted the walls in the house and they had renovated the house. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. They're taking care of the house. And then I started finding a bunch of pictures of them and Carl Weathers from the Rocky movies. And Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed in Rocky.
Yeah.
And Carl Weathers apparently was good friends with these guys because every time they would have parties, they would take pictures, and Carl Weathers was at my old house partying with them. And there were all these pictures of them and Carl Weathers smoking weed. Like, all these pictures of like huge bongs and, like, absurd amounts of weed, like a fucking Wiz Khalifa music video. And Carl Weathers is just smoking up with these guys. And now, for some reason, in the dream, I'm looking at these pictures, and it was no longer my house anymore, so I had no business being upset, but I was really upset about this. Like, I'm looking at these pictures, and I was like, what the fuck? Why is Carl Weathers and all these guys smoking weed in my old house? It's fucking ridiculous. So I got upset. So I go back to my old house on Cheviot Hill. I fucking drive over there. And I come over there, and I just barge in. I just knock the door in, and they're like, whoa, what the fuck is this? I'm like, listen, I used to live here. I'm coming in. And I came in, and I'm like, look, this is fucking bullshit. You guys can't just be in here fucking smoking weed with Carl Weathers. This is insane. And they were like, listen, you need to calm down. I'm like, no, I'm not going to fucking calm down. You're going to be smoking weed with Carl Weathers in my house. This is fucking ridiculous. They're like, listen, kid, this is not your house anymore, all right? Now, if you want to talk shit, we're going to fucking step outside or some shit. So they start threatening me. They get upset with me. And I'm like, listen, just cut the shit. I need to speak to Carl about this. And they're like, look, Carl's going to be by later tonight, all right? Fucking come back later tonight if you want to talk to him. So I leave. I'm super pissed off in this dream. I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. I fucking leave. I come back later that night. So and we have dreams like where it cuts like a film scene, like a transition between a scene.
Yeah.
And we both have this. I don't know if everyone else has this, but basically that's what it was. Like, it transitioned to later that night where I was coming back to the house. So I come back to the house, and the house is just fucking bumping music, fucking strobe lights. Like, there are cars going all the way down the fucking street. And it's a huge party. There's fucking kegs. I walk in, everybody's partying, and I go into the main kitchen area, and there's like an island and a table, and it's set up just the way it was when I lived there. And so I walk into the kitchen, and you're there partying with the kids. You're sitting at the table with Carl Weathers, and you guys are lighting this huge fucking bong. And you guys are smoking. And Carl Weathers is like, yo, what up? And I'm like, Carl, I was super pissed off. And I'm like, listen, this is bullshit. I need to talk to you. And he's like, and he turns to you like we all know each other. Like you and Carl Weathers are good friends. He turns to you and he's like, Dan, Kev's here. Pack a bowl for him. And I was like, no, we won't be packing any bowls, Mr. Weathers. I was like, this is bullshit. You cannot be smoking weed in my old house. I love this house, and now you're fucking smoking weed with all these people in my house. And he's like, so you don't want to hit the bowl? I'm like, no, Mr. Weathers, I don't want to hit the bowl. I want you to fucking leave. And then at this point, one of the fucking kids who fucking lives in the house is like, this is bullshit. I've had it with this kid. Release the hounds. And he fucking opened my back door, and there were a bunch of fucking dogs that came in and attacked me. And then and fucking you and Carl Weathers are like fucking coughing and fucking smoking like, oh shit, this is fucked up. And you guys are like you and Carl Weathers are high-fiving and shit, and you're blowing O's and fucking and
just having a great time.
The dogs were fucking ripping me apart, and then I woke up.
That's terrible. That's a terrible dream. That's fucking scary, dude.
I thought it was funny up until the dog part, but
I mean, it's hilarious. It's absolutely, but you know, in real life, Carl Weathers and I are very good friends. But no, that's a great dream. Do you remember that dream I told you about? Spider-Man rescuing me from falling off a building?
Yeah. Now,
count that? Yeah, I think you recounted this to me last night, but I was super high last night, so I don't really remember.
No, it's funny. Like I think that was a funny dream. The concept of it was funny, but there weren't many funny quotes, like which I usually have in my dreams, and you too.
There was a solid quote. There was a solid quote in there, dude.
Yeah, but like, not in the Carl Weathers dream. No, in your dream. Well, that's what I'm saying.
About
like,
Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is like in that dream that I had about Carl Weathers, like it was a funny situation, but there weren't like any funny quotes, and sometimes. That's the funniest fucking thing when you dream and you come up with a really clever quote. Well, Dan, you told me this was months ago, but I fucking wrote it down somewhere or we recorded it sometime. And you had told me that you had a dream that you were like falling off a building in New York City. And fucking Spider-Man comes out of nowhere and he swoops down and he fucking grabs you like by the waist and he saves you and he swings you up on another building. And you're down. I can't believe I remember this and you don't. And he fucking saves you. You're up on another building now. You're safe. And you were like, oh, God, thanks, Spider-Man. And Spider-Man was like, yep, just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And you were like, oh, yeah, no shit. I remember that from the comics. And Spider-Man says, do you remember this from the comics? And he pulls out his dick. I think that's so fucking incredibly clever to come up when you're not even conscious.
That's absolutely
You come up
hilarious.
with something like that when you're not even conscious. I think it's hilarious.